The dawn of civilization. Primitive. Dangerous. Exciting. The handwriting is on the wall. If the human race is ever going to amount to anything, it needs
the most civilized caveman I have ever seen.
I've kind of shifted more to Scotch than beer lately.
Okay. I mean, a lot less calories.
Yeah, well, it's mostly like, I'm sick of the bloated feeling from drinking beer.
Yeah.
And you have like a Scotch, like neat and stuff, and you don't get any of that. Like, I love that first like sip that you have of Scotch when it goes down and you feel that warm feeling down your throat.
Yeah.
I love that feeling, man. It's such a good feeling.
Yeah. It's just like, when it's like, when it's not.
Hello.
Hey guys, it's Sean.
Hey,
how's it going?
Going really well. It's absolutely miserable weather. It's just like cold and rainy, but it's perfect for listening to My Dying Bride or something. So
there you go.
Awesome.
Can't complain.
Whereabouts are you located? You're in Indiana, right? I mean Indianapolis. Sorry.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. I moved here, about like 2 years ago. And
awesome.
Sort of still getting acclimated from being an East Coast, New York guy. So
okay,
I like it though.
Right on.
Yeah, I moved here I'm in California now, but I moved here from a tropical climate. I was in northern Queensland in Australia, which was like 85% humidity in summer.
Oh wow, yeah. That's not for me. Like I sweat basically if it's over 60 degrees. So Fahrenheit, I guess. I don't know what Celsius is. I've refused to learn for some reason. I don't know why.
We used to get up to 115 Celsius and 115 Fahrenheit in summer, and then like 85% humidity.
Oh my God, that just ruined my day just hearing about it. That's horrible.
I can't say I miss it honestly, because I used to get up and walk to work because I lived in the city. It was like a 15-minute walk, and by the time I got to the office, I was sweating. I'm like, well, I have to now sit in an office all day covered in sweat. That's awesome.
Yeah, everybody must have loved you there, just like dripping.
Oh, there were dudes who cycled to work, and like those guys were the most hated people. The dudes who cycled.
Oh yeah, they're just like biking everywhere.
But like, I'd come into work and I'd be in the bathroom, and there'd be like a 56-year-old dude just changing out of his lycra in his underwear.
Yeah.
in the men's bathroom, like, dude, they have like a gym downstairs. You can go change in the locker rooms. They're like, no, I'm cool.
But I'm not.
No one else is.
I endeavor to be that like comfortable in my own skin that I can just 50 years old, just like strip like I'm in a club.
Oh, you mean like the old guy YMCA locker room confidence?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I hope to be that comfortable one day.
It's like, there's no reason for you to be naked. They're like, yeah, I know.
Yeah. It's nice to talk to you guys. I've been following what you've been doing. I'm a big fan of what you've created in such a short time. It's really impressive.
Thanks, man. That means a lot. We appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you guys started in June, right? June 2020.
Yeah. We just kicked off with COVID with all the free time. I was like, do something productive.
That's so cool. I thought so. I thought it was like a fairly, new endeavor, and man, you guys have just been knocking it out of the park. So great work.
Thanks, man. Same with you with your label, dude. I know you're pretty new to the label, but you guys are killing it. We got some great stuff on your roster already.
Yeah, man. Like, where did you find Vexing Hex, man? Those guys are so much fun.
Oh yeah. Well, Vexing Hex still is the only band whose submission, was kind of like a blind submission that I accepted. Every other band I pursued, myself, and Vexing Hex just blew me away. I hear a lot of people compare them to like early Ghost, and that certainly makes sense, but. There's a lot going on there with just that kind of theatrical 70s prog, the Blue Oyster Cult sort of thing, the Danzig crunch. And, they're all, trained singers too. So those harmonies are just wild. Like that's what really brought me in, is those harmonies. And I was like, God damn, like I like ugly music, but I also like beautiful harmonies like that. So that was the clincher.
Yeah, it's just fun. It's just really fun music to listen to. It's like, you put it on, you're in a good mood the whole time you listen to it.
I'm so glad. Yeah, I'm so glad you said that, because that's really what my label is supposed to be about, like a sense of fun, even when it's music that's kind of like somber, like Mother of Graves. There's they still bring a real exuberance to how they write, and they really revere all the influences that have helped create their sound. Since they were like teenagers, just getting into melodic death doom, like October Tide and Edge of Sanity and Opeth and all that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think they got the attention of Dan Swano with their debut release, which is pretty awesome, to be honest.
Yeah, that was when I was first talking to Mother of Graves. They were the first band I signed.
Okay.
And we were talking about the mastering, and since that was my first album, I kind of did a lot more for their album than I probably will moving forward, because I had to really honor the trust they put in me as a first time, fledgling label rep. So I kind of put a list together of some really solid names for people to master it. And I couldn't believe that I didn't think of Dan like immediately. Because I was like, well, he did master those Catatonia albums that you quite obviously love. So is that too obvious? And they said, no, like if we could work with him, we should. And it was really as easy as that. It's just like reaching out, and he listened and enjoyed it, and had a lot of really kind things to say about their music. And it really just came down to, I think a lot of bands don't really aim high enough, or they'll make assumptions that, Dan, because of his track record, that he's like outside their budget, or they're not worthy of his expertise or something like that. I think my job partially is, as the label runner, is to push people and to encourage people to like aim higher.
Right.
Especially for like bands in Indiana, because it's, part of the flyover states that kind of get ignored, as people are traveling to Chicago or Detroit, you kind of just like skip by it. But yeah, that's been one really fun thing, is like, well, why not these bands, and why not here, and why not now? And that's kind of the whole, impetus for starting Wise Blood in the beginning.
There's I think you're definitely right about the bands not aiming high enough, because there's a lot of those dudes out there who are really big, industry names, who take interest in, really small bands and artists because they like the music and they like to give back. I can't remember which member it is. One of the guys from Conan does a ton of mixing and mastering for Demon and Stoner bands. Yes, that's the one. Yeah. He helps so many tiny bands that no one's heard of.
I would love to work with Chris too. That's like it's almost like I want to challenge him almost with a non-doom band, and like see him have fun. Like I know he's done other stuff, but it would just be really fun to see him transform, another genre or something. But you're right. I mean, there's Trevor from Black Dahlia always kind of showcases smaller death metal bands that he's enjoying. Max Cavalera is always, looking for kind of younger bands that he can help, shine a sort of spotlight on. So I love that element of the sort of like pay it forward in metal. And also people forget that it's still heavy metal. It's still pretty niche. So like Dan Swano is like huge for us, but it's not like, he's, like a Hollywood star,
Right. Yeah. Like I guarantee that if Brendan or I mentioned Dan Swano to our wives, they'd be like, what? What's a Dan Swano?
Yeah. They're like, who? Okay, cool.
Right.
Do you want to finish making dinner?
Right. Yeah, it's just so wild because, there's like a celebrity status for guys like that is well earned in the scene. But if you're not into heavy music, you're just going to have no clue. So I think part of it, and he admitted actually recently in an interview he did with my friend Ricky Fleming, is that he loses work because people assume he's out of their price range, that he's like too big for them. So that's just like
you can't assume.
Yeah.
Wow. I guess that's a lesson, is don't make assumptions about people.
Yeah, man. Like,
yeah, it's worth
the answer. Oh, sorry.
No, it's all good. I just think it's always worth at least checking in. Like the worst.
Yeah.
The worst most people do is just ignore it, and so rarely do you get any negative feedback from someone just checking in.
Yeah,
right.
It's the same with review sites and stuff, and PR people reaching out to big name artists. The worst thing they're going to do is say no.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Makes me I'm dying on this quote here. Is the answer is always no unless you ask.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I talked to a few people who work in who do what we do, review sites, and they said they've had a very select few people tell them to fuck off when they've contacted them for an interview or something, which that's really not the standard. Most people will either say, hey man, I'm kind of busy, don't really have time, or I'm interested. Most people won't tell you to fuck off.
Yeah. That's embarrassing for the person that declined, obviously.
I agree.
You know what I mean? I have no problem with someone being too busy, or it's not their thing, it's not their time. They're focused on writing, whatever it is. But to react that way, it would spread, I think, pretty quickly. People,
I think so. But the thing is, most people that do what we do, they're not going to name and shame them, because you just don't do that.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know if you follow. Do you follow the blog Machine Music?
I do a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, that guy has interviewed some awesome people. I think he's based in Israel. But he posted something recently. He didn't reveal the band because he's a good dude. But he contacted a band for an interview. And then when he actually sent them the questions, they're like, this is generic crap. Why are you sending us this, basically? And then he's like, well, these are the standard questions. Everyone answers these. And then we don't have time to deal with a site like yours. Literally anyone can do what you do. It's just a Facebook page and a website. I could build one tomorrow. I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah.
He says that, you know what I mean? But yeah.
It's tough to also be sort of original when it comes to being an interviewer, and you're talking to a band that's answered, the same stuff, 20 times plus. But
yeah, you got to change it up a little bit, and then things evolve, and then and some questions are just kind of timeless, where you're everybody's got a different answer for something,
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you did a lot of interviewing. You have an article coming out, don't you? For Decibel.
Yeah,
I just read that.
I've been with Decibel for 8 years, and I've been in over 100 issues now, which is kind of wild.
Wow. That's awesome.
Counting, special issues and stuff. I do have a cover story coming out for the 200th issue. So that's going to be a kind of a special thing. I can't really reveal who it was with, but they are famous. They're a very famous death metal band with a long history. That's all I'll say. But
that's cool.
But yeah, so that's my 18th cover story, and most of them are a total pleasure. It's really rare that somebody is kind of difficult to speak with. Have you guys ever run into an interview that was contentious or something?
We did just the other day.
Yeah, we it was a while back. We won't get into it. We won't get into it. It got weird. There's some weird stuff said, super weird stuff. Yeah. It was a whole thing, but yeah, we won't get into it.
No worries. It's tough to recover.
We did have this one person I felt was a little pretentious in some things, and kind of I at one point wanted to be can we take a break here for a second, because I just thought it was a little bit weird.
Yeah. It's hard to put you on the spot there. It's one of those things where I've learned over time that if I have questions that might veer it into like uncomfortable territory, that I ask them at the end,
Yeah.
so I get all the stuff I need before it. I'm like, all right, here's the last 10 minutes. This is where I'm going to ask my weird stuff, and hopefully it goes well. Like once we have like a good vibe started and all that.
We just had kind of like a blown away kind of like, whoa, then like, hey, whoa, didn't expect that, like kind of moment.
Yeah, it's but I think for the most part, you've probably had so many positive interactions that it makes up for like the one or two of those you get, in a span of years.
Yeah, absolutely.
But,
yeah. Oh, man.
But yeah, no, there's let's see, I just did a cover story for the A Year Without Music issue. And for that one, it was tough because usually the cover stories are talking about something people are really excited about, like an upcoming album or honoring an anniversary of a big album, something like that. And for this one, it was all pandemic related. And, I had a bunch of people back out, after agreeing, even after doing the interview, because it's a sensitive subject, So I try to remain, understanding that I would also be kind of gun shy if my words were going to be in print, you know what I mean? And there was like no further editing that could be done. So, so I just try to remain, on there kind of empathetic to that. And it's pretty rare though. It's pretty rare that somebody has to be like removed after the fact.
Yeah. Well, I mean, also, like, you don't know, like, maybe they're thinking about not, like, being a band anymore and, like, why waste the time and energy and then,
That's true. Oh, man, I wonder, I think I reviewed a band that were on the precipice of breaking up. And, and of course, as a reviewer, I have to remind myself, like, I'm not really a big deal. Like, no band is hinging on my review. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's always weird when you have to kind of consider the humanity of the subject. So I really try to not be like snarky in reviews where it's just not music that I dig. And I try to just remain cognizant that I am just one dude with an opinion and that's it. And honor the kind of like time and effort, they put into the recording.
Yeah, man. You there, James? Oh, no.
Oh,
Did we lose James?
we might have lost James.
All right. He'll back out or maybe rejoin, or it might just disconnect us and we might have to do that again. Oh, man. No, we won't have to do everything again. It should have saved, or it will save.
I'm not worried about it. All I've got going on tonight is, let's see, I got a ceramic owl that I was going to put corpse paint on. So,
Nice.
very bad, as you can see.
Oh, dude, I've been doing crazy house projects, like insane. Like we bought a house a couple years ago, we were coming up on a couple years ago, and yeah, I've been going nuts. I'm repainting the whole entire downstairs. Like I did, it's all this like beautiful 1980s like wood everywhere, So now I'm like, I painted all the trim. I'm painting all the archways, the baseboards, all the doors, all that kind of painting.
Yeah.
Like I'm painting everything, And now I just bought paint today for the fucking kitchen, and then oh yeah, I got a lot going on.
All black kitchen.
No, so the kitchen, it's like it's literally all like basically wood and like cheesy laminate wood countertops and like all that stuff. So yeah, it's bad.
Man, I do.
So.
I do think there's something to be said about just having projects in general to keep like our minds and bodies occupied, because
Yeah.
You know, I'm always a dude who's going like project to project, but I assume you're similar because you guys stay so busy with Cave Dweller.
Yeah. I've been helping out a lot with the interviews. I haven't been writing as much just because like I had a setback and I kind of took a small break.
Oh, dude, I charged my headphones overnight, all night for the interview, and I guess they didn't charge, so they died mid-interview, and I had to like run around the house trying to find a backup pair.
Oh
And then,
no!
hey, sorry, man. I was just saying, I charged my headphones overnight for the interview because the way that this app works, we have a microphone plugged in, so it cancels out the sound. So you have to have a wireless headset to hear the other people.
Yeah.
And I guess my headphone didn't charge even though it was plugged in all night, and just died on us. And then I got new ones after I ran around the house for like 5 minutes finding a pair. And then when I connected them to Bluetooth, it disconnected the call. So sorry about that.
I'll pour a drink out for your wireless headphones.
I just have to charge them, I guess. They have like 37 hours of battery life, and somehow it didn't charge any of it. So.
Oh, that's garbage. Yeah, I charged mine this morning. I was like, I have this little I don't know, earpiece, and I just.
Sorry about that. That's all good. Okay.
Yeah, we were just shooting the shit, so it's all good.
Yeah. We were talking about keeping our minds and bodies occupied with projects and all of that.
Oh, I get it, man. I haven't been able to work since trying to get a green card, so I've just been stuck in limbo with COVID and the administration changes. And
oh, wow.
That's why I started Cave Dweller, because I needed something that I was going to go absolutely insane.
Yeah, I mean, I had just got laid off, and then I was hanging out on the internet way too much, and then that's how I met James.
Oh, that's cool. So you guys didn't know each other before like March or April or whatever?
No, we met in like August, I think, after the site started. So it was actually my friend Matt and I from Australia who started it, and then we just met Brendan. Like, this guy's cool. He can be part of the team.
Oh, that is so awesome. I mean, that's how Wise Blood started, is I lost my job in March last year, and this idea had been kind of bouncing around my noggin for a while, and there was just never the time, between my kind of corporate gig and then, Decibel, and I write screenplays also. And
oh, no shit.
Yeah, all that stuff, like, together, there was just never time. So all of a sudden, when we were basically getting paid to stay home, I kind of developed the business plan for Wise Blood, which is mainly just, focus on the bands and the fans. If I could break even the first couple of years, that would be great. And then get into vinyl in like year 3 is kind of the long-term plan,
Nice.
So it's, but I love that we all just took the opportunity to build something during this really weird time when we could have just been like sitting. We actually could have just been cave dwellers instead of building it. So.
Right.
I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who've just spent like 12 months playing Xbox and done absolutely nothing else.
Well, I remember when we started, I started joining up with these guys, was I had a broken leg, so I wasn't doing shit. I was just sitting down, listening to music, and I was like, all right, and then I got fired up the old computer, and then just started doing, some writing and this and that. But yeah.
Man.
I have to ask you, what you mentioned the screenplays. What type of screenplays are you doing? I saw on your profile you're a horror enthusiast. Are they horror screenplays?
Yeah, some of them are. I have one right now called Red Throat. That it's won a couple awards in like Austin Film Festival and stuff for the script competitions. And did you guys see Machete? Do you know that one?
Yeah, I love that movie.
Yeah. So that director and Danny Trejo are both attached to my script right now.
Wow,
nice.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah. So they're we're still in the kind of pre-production process with that, but I've optioned a couple screenplays. None of them have been made yet, so it's still very much, a kind of back burner hustle, like hoping just for that one big break.
Right.
So in the meantime, I'm just like a good little soldier when it comes to the writing. And, I'm just totally in the background as the decision makers do all that. So it's kind of the opposite for Wise Blood. I'm like totally a program manager, giving deadlines and kind of shepherding an album from, the raw tracks to the final, shipment to the fans. So it's kind of fun to just be on both sides of the spectrum with that.
Yeah, that's really cool. You're involved in a lot. Must be pretty busy.
I stay busy. I definitely prefer that. I start my new job. I'm going to bartend for. I've never really bartended as a regular gig, but I don't want to like exoticize it or anything. But it's something I've dreamt about doing because it's such a part of like the Americana experience. Working at a dive bar. So I'm excited to work with a couple other like metalheads in a local place here in Indiana, and hopefully get paid to pour heavy drinks and talk about metal. That sounds pretty awesome.
There you go. Yeah, I was a chef for quite a while, and then I got laid off. That's some fun stuff. I'm actually a brewer right now, so that's pretty cool.
Oh, so are the Cave Dweller IPAs that I saw pictures of, is that your work?
That was mine, actually. I brew. Yeah, I just brew for fun. Brendan is the big time brewer, and we're going to look at doing some more bigger batch stuff down the line, right?
Yeah, I would love to. It's like the place I'm working for is we're been making plans for a canning line and all that stuff. So right now it's just kind of in-house growler pours and pub restaurant happenings. But the a little bit down the line, the future plan was to have a canning line, so I'll be able to like pump out a bunch of cans, do some stuff like that. Like I'm hoping that would be really cool to like get some like contract brewing going or something. I think it would be a lot of fun. Because I'm making like 9-10 barrels up to 15 barrels of beer. And like there's 31 gallons in a barrel, so. It's a lot of beer, a lot of gallons.
Man, what I love is that more and more we see the cross-promotional aspect of metal and beer.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
So, like, obviously Decibel has their, like, metal and beer festival. Mm-hmm. That's really rad. So, right now, like, I'm starting to kind of pitch some of my bands to, breweries to see if we could do like a beer for one of my bands, like a special beer. We're in talks. Like we just did something with True Cult Coffee. And one of the dudes from the band Empty Throne that's on my label. He runs Grindcore Coffee too. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
that's cool.
So I love stuff like that. I love the sort of like entrepreneurial, collaborative spirit. Well, with Grave Ripper, that's like one of the thrash bands we have coming out.
Dude, we interviewed those guys. We reviewed their album ages back. We love Grave Ripper.
Yeah. That's. I'm so excited for you guys to hear this new album, and and I think we will be actually putting that demo on it also. It's kind of like.
Sorry, I made a mistake. Grave Huffer.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Break there. Yeah, wrong band.
No, Grave Huffer is great too, so I don't mind.
Okay.
But yeah, no, Grave Ripper, this kind of like black and thrash band from here in Indiana. It's we're thinking like who could we team up with? We're talking to pizzerias to have like their own slice. We're talking to hot sauce companies and stuff like that. Because we love tying into that stuff, and you get to meet other business owners and support other small businesses and stuff. So I'm very into that, and I think your beer interest it sounds like a really cool opportunity to kind of blend passions too.
We tried initially to do some just for fun stuff for bands that really didn't work out. So we're going to take it a bit slower and do it the right way going forward.
Yeah.
We think
I would eventually love to get a facility where like that's all I do, like do my own thing. But like right now I'm learning a lot about like, that large batch brewing, it's a lot different than in, 5 or 10 gallons, when it's so much more science going into it. So if I can't get the contract going on with the place I work at, like I want to eventually, like we're always talking about cave dweller brewing and whatnot and trying to make that a reality. So I think it'd be a lot of fun, man. Like even like anniversaries. So like say you got like like a 10-year anniversary or a 5-year anniversary of like an album, and you're like, oh man, let's like go have a party for this album, or like we're gonna do a repress for it because it's like so much fun, and then you can have a beer go with it, like you can like plan it right, like there's a lot of possibilities, man.
Yeah,
and I really want to make it happen.
I think that a lot of metalheads are kind of starting to tune into the fact that it's such a niche market that people will buy stuff that's themed after things that they enjoy.
Oh yeah.
And I think people are finally starting to cash in on that. I mean, there's a lot of businesses out there that I really like and support. Like, do you know Liquid Death?
Yeah.
I love those dudes, man. They're so funny. Like that's such a clever
You sell
concept.
your soul for a fucking case of water.
Yeah, exactly. And like they sent me a shirt when I signed up, so I got like Liquid Death shirt that I wear all the time. So I think they're really cool. I love their whole gimmick of like murder your thirst and hydrate or die and stuff. It's great.
Yeah.
And it's also, they don't take it, too seriously. I love that levity and fun.
Yeah, their commercials are hilarious. Have you seen them?
Yeah. That's one of those products that I love when they like kind of show their negative reviews.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like pearl clutching, like anti-Satanism sort of comments they get. I love that stuff.
That one commercial they did as well, it's like they were talking about how other water companies like Fiji Water have these famous mascots and then endorsers, and one of them was like just this fat shirtless hairy dude, and he's like, trust me, I'm a fat dude, I drink a lot of water. Like
I gotta, oh man, I would love to have some sort of like Wise Blood commercial. I gotta figure that out. I would probably have my rat in it. He's sleeping actually in a cage like 6 feet away, socially distant.
Oh, nice.
So
nice.
So he's in here. Also, it's so funny. I've done a couple interviews at this point, and it almost always turns into like kind of we're all interviewing each other because it's like hard for me to turn it off.
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh, the beer venture, that seemed interesting. Care to comment?
I genuinely prefer when an interview seems more like a two-way conversation than someone asking people a bunch of questions. Because anyone can read off a sheet and be like, "What was your inspiration for this album?"
I feel like, that's kind of like how we started out a little bit, and then after we get going, you tweak out all that little fun stuff.
Well, you kind of when you start out, you're a bit intimidated, to be honest. By interviewing bands and stuff, because if it's something that's completely new to you, like, oh man, these are people that I like and respect, and like they're taking the time to talk to me, I got to make it awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I still get nervous almost every single time. And after 8 years, after like all these pieces, like I still have a hard time. I still have a list of questions right in front of me. Because, this format, I love this format. I like listening to this format a lot because of how natural the kind of like rhythm of the conversation is. And when it's for print, I don't have a whole lot of opportunity because of deadlines and stuff for follow-up. So that like puts like a little urgent pressure on like, oh man, I better get a good quotable response, about this thing. So it's definitely kind of a unique animal, interviewing for a print, one of the few remaining print magazines for music worth reading,
Right.
Yeah, we did an interview with Raymond Watts. Are you familiar with him?
Yeah. Oh my God, I just saw. I think. How recently did you talk to him?
Like a little while back. We published it last week. So it just came up on our page. You may have seen it in a newsfeed or something. But
From
we were both.
KTM, right?
Yeah, came with him in Peg, and he also was in like Schwein, a bunch of other projects.
Okay.
Like that, he's by far the biggest person we've talked to, and we were both super nervous going into it. Like, man, this guy's like a big deal type thing, and he was the most down to earth, chill guy. He's just so chill.
He was like, asking me about my children and shit. Just genuinely was like a really rock solid dude.
Yeah, he's like, how's your day? Like, how's the weather there and stuff? And like, oh, this guy's like such a chill guy. It was pretty humbling to meet someone that's that big in there. Like he's big in the industrial scene. He's like a rock star in that scene, and like he's just such a chill guy who doesn't really care who he's talking to. Talks to people the same way. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, we all put our pants on one leg at a time. That's kind of what I've learned through the years of this thing. Is like I so rarely run into egos. You know, I was on a bus down to Maryland Death Fest, and Dan Seagrave was on the bus, and he was going to be kind of sitting next to us for the weekend. You know, so here's this guy who's done the artwork for all of these, kind of classic '90s death metal albums. And I was actually more nervous talking to him than I was talking to like Tom G. Warrior or Matt Pike, and kind of those like metal superstars, I guess. And, Dan Seagrave, I was like, oh no, how am I going to entertain this guy, for a whole weekend? And it was so easy because he just wants to talk about like weird sci-fi movies and art and, and I think we forget that the human element, that people are just eager to connect no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, people seem to think of people in the music industry as like solely existing within music. But I mean, these people have like us, they have their own interests outside of that. Obviously, they have hobbies that aren't music related. You can talk to them about anything.
Right.
Yeah. Like, it always surprises people that I'm such like kind of like a sports nerd. Like I'm really like, sports, like statistics and strategy and management and all that is a big interest of mine. So I've used that to kind of like connect with people outside of metal, Right. It's kind of like an easy combo starter. So that's kind of like my ace in the hole is that I can about sports.
My other super in-depth interest is history. But it's one of those things that, again, it's not everyone wants to talk about the history. And when I get a few beers in me, I'll start rambling about like Roman history. People are like, dude, can we talk about something else? I'm like, no, no, we can't.
I don't think so.
There was like a party at our house a little while back for someone's birthday, and I got blacked out drunk for the first time in a very long time. And I apparently recounted an entire documentary series I'd watched scene by scene. And entertained the entire party for like half an hour straight. There's some videos. I have videos of it that people took of me. So
it's like that. Have you ever watched that show, Drunk History?
Yeah. It was essentially that. Yeah, that was what happened.
That's a good show, man. I gotta catch up on like the last season of that or whatever's relevant. Like, yeah.
I guess, man, I've always thought of, doing something like Drunk History, but talking about, like music, like some of the stuff in music. Like, you could talk about, obviously, like the Norwegian church burning stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But since everybody, since some people are still alive, there's probably a bunch of, slander and libel charges that could happen. So I guess I'll stay away from that and focus on stuff, in the 19th century and prior.
Yeah. That's funny.
So are you a screenwriter by trade? Is that what you went to school for and all that? Is that what you studied, or is that just a hobby of yours?
Yeah. I went to film school, and film kind of still, remains like a huge passion for me. I was really into, obviously like slasher stuff and, some supernatural horror movies, but, also, kind of character driven, kind of gritty crime films and stuff. But that was my first love. And I was in a mediocre hardcore band in high school, and got into metal, and it kind of the love for metal kind of faded when I was in college as I focused on film. And then I wrote a screenplay about the sort of resurgence of this down and out black metal musician. And it won, it was like named a finalist in the biggest competition in the industry, the Nickel Fellowship, which is like, the Oscars like sponsor it and stuff. So that was kind of, I was studying and researching, like, what have I missed over the past, 5 years in metal, basically. And got back into reading Decibel. And that kind of like reignited my passion for heavy music. So it's kind of screenwriting that brought me back to that, which was kind of cool. I didn't end up selling that script because they read it and they're like, nobody's going to pay to watch this, like, poverty level black metal musician, like cry about his rotting teeth. They're like, this is not a very cinematic story. But it brought me back, at least it brought me back to heavy music. And, cause I was in like the folk music scene in New York and Brooklyn. I was the same group actually that Lana Del Rey was a part of before she was famous and stuff. So like she was in that songwriting circle with us. And so it was just kind of like one of those weird things where I intersected with a lot of really talented people, but never really with the metal scene until, Decibel kind of brought me back on board. Brought me on board as a writer.
How did you how did you end up getting that gig? Like, how did you end up at Decibel?
It is, to this day, it's the only thing that's ever worked out like exactly as planned in my entire life. It was like New Year's Eve or New Year's, and I was kind of battling with a depressive episode and really looking for some sort of, kind of momentum forward, like some sort of new spark. So I said, and I just needed something new and fresh. So I said, well, what if I start a music blog and I write every single day for 30 days. And by the end of that, I'm going to have a decent little portfolio. I can send my top 4 or 5 pieces. And I sent it out to a bunch of different magazines. Decibel's the only one that accepted me in that first wave, and they were my favorite, So and to this day, I'm just so loyal to Andrew Bonazelli was managing editor at that time, and we remain really close. Like he's also a great screenwriter, and I help with his projects, and obviously Albert, the editor in chief, the boss man, he is such a source of integrity and strength, and he's hilarious. His social media clapbacks are like some of the best in the business. So that was I'm really loyal to those guys, and it's kind of like a little family. The people who have written there for so long, because I grew up reading them, and so it was kind of wild all of a sudden sharing pages with Justin Norton and Nick Green and all these other Jay Bennett, these guys that to me were like, I give a shit what they have to say about an album. Like that actually might change my opinion or if I check something out, So all of a sudden I'm like on the same page with them, and I'm like, man, my writing is just not as good. It's like, it's cold in their shadow. But now I have a lot more confidence, partially because they encouraged me. There was no sort of like, let's harass the new kid or like territorial sort of stuff. Everybody was just so encouraging, because I was the young guy, on the team. And, There's probably somebody younger now that's been 8 years, but for a while I was kind of like the kid on the squad. So
That's awesome. I'm glad that worked out for you.
yeah, it's definitely, without that, there would not be Wise Blood, for sure. Because that kind of connected me to the scene. I met all the publicists and the label representatives, and sort of got comfortable talking about the business side of music, which is, could be a little stale and dry to some people, but I love that sort of planning element. I love spreadsheets. I'm such a geek, like, with spreadsheets and organization. So it was just an interest of mine, kind of from the start.
I get you with the spreadsheet thing. I worked in government as a policy analyst for a year, so my brain works in spreadsheets now.
Oh yeah. When I learn like a new formula or something in Excel, I'm like, I'll probably just get my first tattoo will probably be some like Excel formula. That's it's people need people kind of like with our mind in industries like this, because I don't really have a naturally artistic mind. I wish I did, or like a poetic mind. I'm like kind of, I'm more literal, and I can be creative, but it takes a lot more work for me.
Right.
Then I listened to an interview you guys did, I think, with Weed Demon.
Yeah.
It was a great interview, and those guys talking about like, I get up at noon and I've got like two reefers going. That's awesome. I wish I could do that, but I wouldn't get anything done.
Right.
My brain just like cannot handle things being like nebulous. I need to be very structured. So I think sometimes having a dude who like pushes a project to the next deadline,
right?
Who does like the boring stuff is necessary, and I get more ears on these bands. So
that's definitely true. That's kind of my role with Cave Dweller to some extent. I mean, I'm the guy everyone who writes submits stuff to me, and I format everything. I publish everything. I lay it out for when it's going to be released, and I do all the email side of things, all the contact with all the labels and bands, and all the background stuff. You need that background stuff. It has to happen. Someone has to do it.
What I love about it is that our titles, like you kind of running Cave Dweller, me like running a record label, that title's really sexy. But then you look at all the stuff we're doing, and it's like, dude, it is grunt work. Like, I'm ordering, what size envelopes do I have to use for, like, what sort of like, how high should the bubble wrap be in my packages? That's like the tedious, boring crap that I'm dealing with usually.
For me, it's like once every week I have to just like sit down, and I always dread doing it, and just go through the week of emails. And there's like 136 emails I haven't read. I'm like,
God, yeah.
Figure out.
Never ends.
Yeah, my hat's off to you, man.
Never ends. I get a lot of submission emails. And when the label first started, I was able to kind of respond to each one. And at this point, I only respond if they tailored it to us.
Right. I get that.
It's just, there's not enough time. Like, time is our most precious commodity in my opinion.
Right. I agree.
But more than money at this point. So, if they put effort in and it looks like they did some research on the label, or they referenced something we did or said, they'll get a response. And, usually it's just like, it's not the right time, or it's not the right sound. And I'm just very upfront but polite. But once in a while, there's like, hey, well, keep in touch when you have new music, because there's some potential here. So I'm very cautious about not giving people false hopes. Just because I don't. It's tough for rejected people. I wish I could do everything.
It's not. I hate that part of it, man. Like, I hate people who ask for a review and you're just like, hey, man. Like, the hardest part is telling people you don't like their music and finding a way to say it that's not hurtful.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
obviously, it's going to happen. You're not going to like everything. There's a lot of music out there, and everyone wants their stuff covered, or wants to be on a label.
Mm-hmm.
So it's never going to always work out.
Yeah, I always say, like, wealth is so often wasted on boring people. Because, man, if I had wealth, I would just be putting out cool shit every week. I'd be hosting like weird orgy parties with heavy metal. It would just be wild. It would be great. But instead, here I am, like counting pennies as I get like new stickers in, to make sure that that the bands have like the multiple size stickers for each package. It's not glamorous, but I think people notice when you put in like the little touches and you personalize it.
Yeah, man. You get, who doesn't love a fucking free sticker? Or like anything like that. You know what I mean? Like, dude.
I have a question for you that I've always been curious about. Who handles the emails for Decibel Magazine, or those big print magazines? Is there someone whose designated job is dealing with that, or does someone just have to, like, do you all share that workload, or how? Because I imagine there's an absolutely stupid amount of submissions to Decibel Magazine.
Yeah, there's got to be. Yeah, no, there's so they have a couple customer service people. They have a salesperson, and Albert handles his own inbox, which I'm sure is filled with hundreds of requests a day, including some from me. Including my request for an extension. But yeah, so there are a few people that depending on it. I don't really have a Decibel email. I operate with my own writing email, and I post on the blog, once or twice a week, depending. And the handful of writers that post on the blog just operate totally on their own, like without supervision. so there's a lot of trust. We edit our own stuff. We pick the stuff we write about on the blog. So that's kind of like the part where we get to have like our own taste and personality.
Right.
For the magazine, you can pitch stuff, but it's Albert's baby. So most 90% of the stuff is assigned.
Okay.
But yeah. So if you look up the stuff that I've done on the blog, you can kind of find like, the author stuff. You can kind of be like, oh, here's a glimpse into the stuff that Sean really likes. And it's like really gross death metal, really like stonery doom stuff. You can kind of get a closer to look like to what I'm jamming out in my little office here, when I'm not working on Decibel stuff.
And then the magazine is more so the stuff that you've been assigned that you have to cover type thing.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. Albert will kind of be like, hey, are you into this band? You know?
Oh, so they will ask you. They won't just give you something.
Yeah. Obviously as a writer, you want to do stuff. I've turned down. I've probably in 8 years, I've probably turned down like 8 pieces where it's not a band that I was passionate about, or I knew somebody else would do it better. Like,
right.
Like for whatever reason, I never really got into Morbid Angel when I was a teenager, and that's a mistake, obviously. I know. It was really hard telling Albert, like, hey, man, I think this is better for somebody else. But I'm glad I did, because then, like, I think Sean McComber wrote it and did a phenomenal job, like way better than I would have done, because he already knows their discography. He has like that attachment to the music already.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense, man. James is actually really good too about being like, hey, man, this band's putting out something, like, I know you like them, like, you want to go for it, it's all yours, so it makes a big difference, if you're passionate about something, you're going to put that 110% into it. And if it's not something you're really into, then like, are you really going to do it justice?
Exactly. I know my own limitations with what I interested in writing about. And I know that if I actually enjoy the music, like if it's something I'm passionate about or really interested in, I'll write a much better article than if it's something I'll be like, this is pretty good. They did this with the guitar. These drums are like this. You know what I mean? Like, and there's other people who I know would like the music more than I would who have a passionate opinion about it. So I'd rather have someone write something good.
Yeah, and now at this point, my biggest writing stance is that I don't write negative reviews unless I'm getting paid.
That's good. What's a good stance to have?
And that's just for me. Like, I don't mind other people doing it, especially if they're starting out, because you have to be able to. You have to be able to like frame critiques, in like in a constructive way and like in the sort of illustrative way. But I would really obviously rather just share stuff that I love. So that's kind of, I've written negative reviews for Decibel. It's never fun. I don't relish, skewering something that somebody worked really hard on, but it's part of it. I can't lie if I feel something is, doesn't connect with me. So,
man. And also, as like writing reviews and this and that, like, you are the authority. You're the one giving the opinion. You're the one.
That's right. Yeah, it's always so weird to hear somebody say like, "Oh, you're kind of an authority." I was like, "Oh man, I'm not prepared for that title."
Yeah, it's true though. Like when I was like first started writing like some reviews and stuff like that, I was just like, "Wait a minute, no, I gotta write it like this is how it is because I'm the one writing it, like that I am the authority, like, holy shit.
Yeah. And especially if somebody is coming to Cave Dweller and they're reading reviews and everything is getting praised over and over and over, you start to sort of lose your confidence in someone's kind of taste because it's just all, it's all positive. So, that's something, Decibel, I think, is known for having a lot of 7s and 8s out of 10.
We actually don't do the rating system with our site. It's just something we never thought about doing. But what I say is that we try to pick specific things from albums that we like, and it's always different what we praise. Mm-hmm. We don't really tear albums down, but we'll say this is the highlight. This could be done better, maybe. Because, if you just say the guitar was good on every album you listen to, everyone's be like, okay, well, who cares type thing. But, for me, it would be like, if you're looking for this is what you like about the album. Whereas if you're looking for this, you won't like it for this reason type thing. Which I think maybe is more helpful.
Like, you could, love the music and hate the vocalist, or vice versa, love the vocalist and be like, I don't know what the fuck.
I wrote one this morning that was like a super melodic black metal album and I said straight up in the summary, like, if you like pure black metal, you want something raw, like boundary pushing, you're not going to want to listen to this music. If you just want something fun, you can kind of rock out to that has blast beats and like a melodic guitar, this is what you're looking for type thing. Mm-hmm. So I think if you're straight up from the start with people and be like, don't bother reading the review if that's what you're looking for, I think that helps.
Now, what are your guys' kind of approach to comparing bands to other bands and influences and stuff like that?
Yeah, I'll do it. I don't want to make the whole review about it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I'll maybe put like a paragraph out of the whole review that says, these are the influences that you can pick up. If you like this, you'll probably like it.
Yeah.
There's a band that you have to talk about it. Like with one of your bands we reviewed, the Caskets Open. It's impossible not to compare that music to Danzig or Typo Negative.
Right.
You know what I mean? It just...
I know, it's so good too. Like, oh man.
That was why I loved it. That was what I liked about the album so much, is that they took some of my favorite elements of classic bands and they just twisted them in a way that hadn't been done before, and I loved it. But it'll be very hard to write that album without comparing those bands.
Yeah, I felt like that when I wrote a review for Spellbook. Like, they had so many like influences from so many different like oh my god, it was ridiculous. Like, from like the Kiss drum licks to like Stevie Ray Vaughan, man. Like, it's just like everything. It was so much. Like, a lot of people influenced those guys and they did the music justice.
What about you? What's
They
your
did such
take
a
on
good
that?
job.
I love it as a reader too. You know, like I know bands want to be seen as their own kind of separate entity, but I think there's definitely a place for the sort of shorthand language. You know, of like, because sometimes saying a subgenre isn't even enough. You know what I mean? You can't even say Norwegian black metal with like, oh wait, well, which wave of Norwegian black metal, you know? So I think the band references are very helpful for me as a fan and a reader. So I would definitely throw that stuff into my reviews and because it's really about the reader first. It's not really about the band, you know?
No.
So like I understand and I honor how hard it is to write music, but there have been very few albums that have come out the past 5 years that sounded unlike, you know, something I'd heard prior. Maybe like Lingua Ignota, you know, like her music feels like pretty much entirely different. Maybe Harvey Milk when they were writing music, or Mr. Bungle. You know, there are some like more like 90s Mr. Bungle. It's pretty rare that something can't be sort of like, you can't see the trajectory of it through metal history. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
So yeah, you know, it's one of those things where I think of the reader first, and I think bands get it. You know, it's pretty rare that a band is like, man, you really went too hard on comparing us to Catatonia. You know, like Mother of Graves, they handle it so well. Their singer, Chris Morrison, well, not their singer, I'm sorry. Brandon is the singer. He has those great growls. Chris and Ben are the guitarists and songwriters. They
which one of them is? Oh, sorry, just really quick question. Let you finish. Which one of them is in Obscene?
Brandon, the vocalist, is the drummer of Obscene.
Okay. Sorry, I just wanted to ask. I'm a huge fan of that band.
Yeah, no, they're an awesome band. They're great. Yeah, I'm friends with those guys. They're really cool. But you know, Chris Morrison, when people are like, "Well, this really sounds like early Catatonia," he'll be like, "Oh, good. I hope so, because that was the idea." You know, it's like, sure, because those are my favorite albums of all time. Yeah. So, like, you know, he definitely does his homework and goes back and listens to make sure he's not doing a cover. You know, because there's some of those riffs where he's like, "Man, I don't want to like accidentally perjure, you know, something from like Dance of December Souls, but or Brave Murder Day or something." So, but you know, he has such a good attitude about it, and you know, I think bands could really learn from that. It's like, don't take that stuff to heart, you know, because it's gonna sound differently to everybody anyway.
Or take it as a compliment, to be honest. I mean, if someone's comparing you to an all-time great in the genre like that, that's a good thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think it's
no.
big.
You know, I think some people will be like, well, you know, it wounds them because they don't feel, you know, I guess unique or something.
Unless you're saying like, oh, it sounds like, you know, you're like,
no, if someone says that, then they're probably not going to like your band anyway. If they don't Catatonia, because that's what it sounds like. So that band, you know, right away I heard that stuff and I was like, okay, I know the genre this is referencing. I don't hear it that much. You know, the bands, I guess, the last 5 years that I've really liked in that genre were like Rotting Kingdom, Pulchrum Morte, maybe. It's in Mother of Graves just blew me away. Like they were pretty much studio ready, all like and good to go on that 4-song EP. And by the time, you know, we got Dan Swano to master it, like that thing dominated on Bandcamp for like a month. Like that's awesome. It just top 3 in death metal and doom, and it was wild. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I painted my like a lot. I painted a lot listening to that. I was like, oh my god. When it first came out, I was doing like a lot of work, and then like I got kind of overwhelmed with a lot of personal shit in my life, and then I kind of took a break. But I was like, dude, I still.
I just want to be clear though. You don't owe anybody a review ever.
Yeah.
You know,
it's hard not to think of it that way because, like, you tell someone you're going to do it, and then you feel obliged to do it, but like they haven't paid you or anything. It's not a contract.
Yeah. I mean, dude, you gave me a code for the album, and I'm like, oh, sweet, like, great, awesome. I have the work ahead of me. I got to do this, and like when it comes out, I can listen to it, and then like boom, 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 and then yeah, man, I just I feel I don't know, like I made I said I'd do it, so I mean I got to do it. That's the kind of way I am, and I don't want to half-ass it either, That's why I was like, you know what, I'm just not gonna like do anything unless I'm putting effort into it. I don't want to half-ass something, Like there's a couple of bands that I talked to that I was like, you know what, I said I'd have this done, and I'm taking a small break, and I'll be back at it, and I promise it'll be really good, but I can't do it right now.
Right. What's that Ron Swanson quote? It's like never half-ass two things, whole-ass one.
Yep. Yeah, exactly, dude. Exactly. So it's like, cutting out like, I've got like 2 kids, one's in kindergarten, and like I'm like dealing with hybrid schooling and this and that. Like there's just so much, like just going on. I don't have the time and like or the space really to just like sit down and like listen to music and write the way I'd like to, and like, oh man, once like schools are back to normal, and like even like the summertime when like I'm not, like having to sit in front of a computer and help my son learn, I'm gonna be able to just like do shit the way I want to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think guarding yourself from burnout is something I've had to contend with a lot as a music writer, because like you said, I want to be able to cover stuff, but I also get just pounded with promos all day long.
Yeah.
And there's no way to stay on top of all of it. So, as I'm speaking, I know I have a couple of publicists that if they listen to this, they're going to be like, that's a son of a bitch. Hasn't answered me. He's chatting with these guys for an hour. I know he could, get back to me about that, about the band. I don't even want to say the real band name, but, there's some where I'm like, there's no way I'm going to cover that. There's just none. You have to be in a polite way to say no.
You want to do it justice. You gotta,
Like, I'll take all.
Thank you, Ron Swanson.
I'll take all the promos we get sent, but you have to be picky with it. It's just it's impossible to cover everything that you get submitted. There's absolutely no way. And if you try, like you said, you're just going to burn yourself out completely.
Yeah. One of the great things about advancements in recording technology is that, dudes like Trevor William Church, can make haunt like a full-time job, that rules. Like, I love when talented, like, dudes like that can make that work. But the flip side of it is that I get like a dozen one-man raw black metal demos like every day, and I'm all for people having their outlet, and I'm happy that it brings them joy. But it's just not possible for me to sort of get back to every one of those people and validate their art. You know what I mean?
Right. I pretty much been having to tell people for the last month or two, we're just not covering anything from 2020 anymore. There's just no way. Like 2021 is a new year. There's a shitload of new music. I'm like, dude, we can't look back. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We got to just look forward.
Yeah. There'll be time for it, but like, when the album is like, oh my God, like we got to cover that. Like, I know like there's a couple albums that came out like in like, November and December that like I said I'd write about, or whatever. And like, even then it's just like,
But you'll get people that reach out to you and like, can you review my album from 2018? And like, no, no, I can't. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Unless it kicks fucking ass. And like, you know what I mean? It's like, oh my God, dude. Like that band Hate Waker, like they had that album that came out in 2019 and we were just like, dude, it's not new, but like,
no, I mean, there's been albums that have blown me away that are so unique that I'm like, I'm covering that like tonight type thing as soon as you listen to it. Mm-hmm. But like the average guy who submits an album from 2018 or 19, it's not something I'm going to put everything on hold that's coming out in the next 2 weeks to look backwards.
Yeah.
It's just the sad reality of review writing is that you're so overwhelmed with what's coming out currently or in the future that it's hard to look back sometimes.
Yeah, which is, I really appreciated you guys talking about Caskets Open, because it's one of those things that it's really hard. We knew that reissuing an album would be tough, because people are just ready to move forward. So,
well, I'm always happy to cover a reissue. I think that's a good reason to look back at an album that's really good, but it has to be something I really enjoy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like Nails just did a reissue. Oh my God, that was so good.
Do you know the
it just
sorry, continue. My bad.
Oh, I was just gonna say, it just reminds you of like kind of like brings you back to like, if you were a big fan of it when it came out, you're like, oh my God, I remember day or release day. Like we were, you know what I mean? Like, like it. There's memories and there's so much that goes with like having something like that, or like you missed out on the first round and like. You know what? Maybe you couldn't have the first round pressing, but like you get your second round because you wanted it and you have it and you can, Yeah,
I mean, I'm sure you've had this experience. Do you ever find it hard to listen to the music that you enjoy, that's your personal taste? Sometimes when you're trying to listen to all the new stuff coming out that's being submitted.
Yeah. I've definitely had weeks where I almost have to schedule them, where I'm like, okay, after I send in my cover story. For the week after that, I'm just going to listen to stuff that I loved, like from the 90s, or
that's exactly it.
Yeah. Just so I don't like lose touch with the stuff that brings me a lot of joy. There's this album by Attic called Sanctimonious, and it's basically Merciful Fate. It's basically like a Merciful Fate, kind of like homage band, but they do it so well. I probably listened to that album like every month for the past 2 years. So every once in a while I'm like, I'm going to go for a 40-minute walk, and that's exactly the amount of time I have to listen to Sanctimonious. So here we go. I try to build it in so that I can kind of like stay connected to the stuff that brings me like immediate joy, where I don't have to like have my critical ear open. I can just oh man, here comes that part that I love.
Yeah. And I kind of set myself a general rule that if I'm in the car or I'm at the grocery store for, doing a big grocery shop or something, I only listen to stuff that I love. Those are my times. That's just for me. It's not for the website.
Yeah.
I love drive. I have a half-hour drive to work, so it's about enough time to listen to almost just about every album I want to hear, So it's like, I try to make it a point to like listen to something new either on the ride in or on the ride home from work, and then something that I just like I love on the I love jamming.
That's a great approach. Yeah. At this point, I'm getting to the point where I have like about 7 or 8 albums that have been released and queued up. So I do like listening to the stuff I'm releasing. It makes me feel really proud. So. All day I had like this Grave Ripper EP just like kind of on repeat until like these songs just like in my bones.
Yeah. I listened to that today while I was making dinner, and I put it on 2 times. I was like,
the
awesome.
Complete Blinding Darkness demo thing.
Yeah, I think so.
Right on.
I gotta double check it, but
yeah. I thank you for checking that out. There's a lot of the fans and supporters, when we first announced it, that's all the music they have out. So people went and checked it out, and they were like, please tell me this is going to be on the release. I kind of talked to the band and convinced them like this would be a really great way to like reward people who buy the EP, is like in the very first run of CDs and tapes, have the demo tracks on there. And once those sell out, they're gonna be gone, and the EPs after that won't have the demo. So it'll be kind of like a little reward for the people that get in on the ground floor, I guess.
Yeah. It was Complete
Awesome.
Darkness. Yeah, it was really good. I was like, wow. Yeah. My wife was like, oh. And I'm like,
your wife's not a metal fan?
No, neither is mine.
No, mine either. My fiance like lives. She really loves like what she calls like sad girl music, but like SK,
Lana Del Rey,
big time, Halfway, stuff like that. So, but she can hang, she'll come and sling merch with me. We went to Maryland Death Fest. She's moshed to Integrity and I Hate God with me and Demolish. So
nice.
She can hang, but it's definitely not her music of choice.
Right.
Yeah, my wife's always like, I like it until they start, screaming and sound like.
That's exactly what my wife says too. So if you play like classic heavy metal and stuff, she's like, this is fine. I like this. The guitar's good. And then you put death metal on, she's like, this is horrible. I hate this.
Yeah. Oh, it's so funny. Like when Slayer was doing their final world tour, and she just didn't realize that, how they had their vocal style wasn't like that, or anything crazy. It was just like that yelled kind of everything's audible. You understand what that motherfucker's saying. And she was just like, oh, it's not that bad. And I'm like, no, this is fucking awesome. And she's like, well, why don't you listen to this more? And I'm like, because this.
My wife doesn't mind Slayer either. She's allowed some Slayer at the wedding. So when we have the wedding, there will be Slayer on the playlist. So that's a good thing.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've kind of thought about what if Cannibal Corpse, enunciated really well, like Morbid Angel. David Vincent was a pretty clear growler.
Yeah, it was.
But, so I was like, man, I don't know if anybody really wants to hear about, pissing in her maggot-filled asshole or whatever they're talking about.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's so disgusting. You're like, why?
Yeah.
Why?
There's a reason that gore grind is hard to understand as well. As a genre.
Right.
Or porno grind.
Yeah. I'd rather have something with, crazy content, oh, man, I love that band Emerit from Germany. They do that atmospheric sludge. They've been doing this whole thing about their hermit traveler, and this huge long story, and I got a little sneak peek with The Empty Throne, and those fucking lyrics, every song on that EP is gonna be fire. It's so good,
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, that stuff's up my alley. You have 3 pages of lyrics and it's all it's so good. I love it.
The concept albums are fantastic. It's always something super enjoyable.
Yeah, man, they're one of my favorites. I love Howling Giant, man.
Yeah,
those guys have oh my god, great concept albums, and they're not crazy heavy, but those guys are so talented that, you know what I mean? I just fucking love that shit.
Did you guys check out that the band The Mountain King and that album that they just brought out, the Smell of Stars and Vomit?
No.
I feel like
that
I have that
was one of the coolest concept albums I've heard in a real time. It's an hour and a half album, and it's in 2 tracks, and one's an intro, which is 1 minute, and then the rest is 1 track. But it's a concept album about a guy he's an astronaut, and his spaceship, I guess, is in a collision with a meteor. And he's drifting in space, waiting for his oxygen to run out, and it runs out, and he doesn't die. And he can't figure out why he won't die. And then he realizes he's not actually a human; he's actually a cyborg built by the space company, and didn't know his whole life that he wasn't human. And then it's him coming to terms with the fact that he's not actually human. And eventually, he loses track of time and space, and detaches from Earth and humanity, and retreats into his mind and stuff until he gets sucked into a black hole. But it's cool. It's a cool concept.
Yeah.
Who
the Mountain King.
Who is this?
Is the artist? It's a 1-man project from Germany, and it's 20 different genres on that album as well. It goes for an hour and a half, and it changes constantly throughout.
I will. I'll definitely.
Yeah, I don't have that there. I'm looking through my.
If you go
right
to the Cave Dweller Bandcamp, it's in our purchase items. If you're looking to find it.
Awesome.
Okay.
Kind of sounds like a kind of Blade Runner mixed with oh god, what was that movie where they're just out, kind of stranded? I think Sandra Bullock was in it.
I think I know which one you're talking about.
Oh,
I don't remember the name of it though.
Yeah.
Out in space,
bobbing around.
he gets lost. God damn. Oh, dude, that had one of my biggest fears. Like, seriously, like just getting like thrown through space and just like tumbling through like one of the craziest scenes.
Yeah,
Orbit,
it is. Yeah, I think you're right.
I think it's called Orbit. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Dude. Or getting lost in the fucking ocean. God damn. If that fucking ever happens to me, I swear to God, you know
So
I'm in hell,
speaking
man.
of fear and horrors, not to change the topic to music again, but I have to know, as someone who writes horror scripts, what are your top horror movies of all time? Do you have like a top, or is it too hard to choose?
Oh man, let's see. Well, one I really like is The Descent.
Okay.
Yeah, that one about like a bunch of. Well, obviously it's good for your site too because they're actually going into a cave and see a bunch of. Yeah, the cave dwellers they meet are not very friendly. So that one is a favorite. And I got to meet that director once upon a time in New York. But apart from that one, the original Texas Chainsaw is a favorite.
Yes, classic.
Yeah, the original Evil Dead.
Okay. Good one.
Yeah, I love those. Oh, man. Such a classic.
Yeah, I just love, like, I really miss the sort of practical effects of the 80s and how it just felt more realistic while looking less realistic. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I felt like the first one, they tried to make it like actually scary and this and that. And then I think after it, they're like, nah, this just needs to be comedy.
Yeah.
And they just, you know what I mean?
Did you watch Ash?
And I'm glad they did it because, like, Bruce
series?
Campbell.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's really funny.
I started it. I haven't
funny.
finished it.
I love horror comedy itself. I think is definitely a tough genre to hit right. Once upon a time, I sold a script called the Post-Ironic Hipster Massacre. With like this super exclusive, like basement show in Brooklyn that goes terribly wrong. So I sold that once upon a time, and it has not been made. But now there's been enough distance that I could actually do it as like a retrospective about his culture. So I'm like, hey, this might be the sweet spot. Like 10, 15 years later, when people are nostalgic, for like Brooklyn hipsters and all that again, we'll maybe it could get made.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, I really love some movies that maybe aren't horror in the classic sense, but kind of like still inspire that. Like I Saw the Devil. I thought was like a really phenomenal, disgusting film. Or Taxi Driver to me is actually
that's a great movie.
Yeah, I think that's a horror film. Like in my mind, that's psychological horror.
Really? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You know what? I like the psychological stuff more than like the jumpy. Like I like the zombie kind of stuff too, but like I'd rather more be like, holy shit, this fucking weirdo has trapped people in these fucking cages for a long time. Like, what the fuck's going on? You know what I mean?
Have you noticed that there's been
he makes them fight over fucking raw meat and shit. No. I'm just.
Have you noticed that there's been a shift sort of in the horror mindset in the last few years, where it's moved kind of away from, I guess, traditional scary things to being more about mental health. And there's a lot of movies that use metaphors for it. Like there's The Babadook. There's Hereditary, Midsommar. I watched one the other day that was about dementia. I can't remember what it was called. But yeah, there's like, it's more broad dealing with mental health things, but projecting them as horror-based things. It's kind of a shift in the industry a bit. I like it personally.
It's very
movie Split, where like people like split personality.
It's very, to me, it's really welcome. I think I miss the slasher mentality. I miss the kind of lean and mean thriller aspect of it sometimes. But the sort of, horror as like a transcendental, experience thing that like Hereditary and Midsommar are trying to do, I think elevates the genre, and it's not just like, cheap thrills for lowbrow degenerates like me, it could also be like an art form. So I think it's really cool to have that stuff. Like the flip side is obviously when something like that is successful, you have all these other people who aren't quite capable of it trying to do it. So something like It Comes at Night, which I just thought was so boring.
I hated that movie. I was so excited for it after watching the trailers, and then nothing happened.
Yeah, a great trailer, really ominous trailer, and then it was just nothing happened.
Yeah.
Something that tries to get by on just atmosphere probably isn't going to work for me. But I do think there has been a sort of renaissance of films. I would even consider It Follows to be in there, because horror is supposed to be done on a shoestring budget. It's more believable if there aren't like big stars and stuff in it. Usually.
I think so too.
I always loved those like Rob Zombie movies,
Well, yeah, Rob Zombie certainly has love for that genre, and I don't always like his approach to it. Like he basically is just ripping off Texas Chainsaw 2, like over and over and over. But
over and over.
But, I know he loves it though, and I know he likes the '70s grindhouse stuff. Like Last House on the Left and all that. So he's a capable filmmaker, and he at least brings like a pulse to it. That a lot of these, like, I mean, how many goddamn franchise horror movies do we need? I've like Saw. I don't even know how many Saws they got up to.
Like 12 or something ridiculous.
Oh, I don't even know. I stopped after
so whatever kind of gets it out of that like assembly line franchise mode is all good to me. Like give people the shot to make something like kind of like off the wall and strange and difficult to describe. Like I'm all for that.
Yeah, you should check out a horror movie from Australia called Relic.
Relic, okay. I like The Loved Ones. Is that Australian?
That was good. Where was that from? Hang on, I'll just double check.
If it's New Zealand, I apologize.
It might be New Zealand. Loved Ones. No, it's Australian. It's Australian.
Awesome. All right.
That was an interesting movie.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. Because there's been some really good Australian horror. So, that was one that stuck out to me. That had just like the right amount of like dark humor. Wasn't really torture porn, but kind of rubbed up against that genre a little bit. That was a really good one.
It's like that. I can't remember what season it was with The Walking Dead when they like opened up when Negan was friggin' bashing everybody's fucking skull in, and everyone's like, "I'm done with The Walking Dead. It's just torture porn." Blah blah blah. I can't believe this. And it's like, dude, yeah, that was pretty fucked up shit, of course, but like, I don't know, man. Like stuff like that, like it's not if you're throwing it in every once in a while in a story like that, like that's pretty cool. But like if that's the whole thing,
gets a bit old.
It's just
Did you ever watch?
You need to get some better ideas.
Hotel Inferno.
Hotel Inferno. No. Let me look that up.
I think it's what it's called.
No.
What the name of it is. It was a first-person horror movie that's R-rated, and it's like one of the most violent things I've ever seen in my entire life. Yeah, Hotel Inferno. That's the one.
Oh wow. Yeah, I'm interested. I'll say that.
It's very violent.
Well, one thing I think when you mentioned those kind of like more psychological, horror films that are basically, mental health metaphors. Yeah. I think partially why we're seeing stuff like that and like The Witch and all that
Yeah, that was a good one too.
It's because we can see, on Walking Dead, we can see Negan bash someone's fucking eye out of their head, on just like an AMC show. Like all of a sudden, kids watch Walking Dead. It's wild.
Right.
That is like a popular mainstream show with like violence that is pretty hardcore, for something showing at like 8 or 9 p.m.
Right.
So,
right. Yeah. There's a lot of viewers. There's a lot of like probably younger people that like are under the recommended viewing age that are watching
which I love all about it. I mean, I was watching.
How it is.
Yeah, I was getting the shit scared out of me in watching HBO at like 4 a.m. when I was a kid. When like Ed would be on and Evil Speak, all the movies with evil in it. But I think horror now, it's not enough to just like be violent and shocking, because we're like, we can find that anywhere. We could just like, we could find videos of real beheadings and shit online. Like, what do we care about? So there's, I think there's an element of that where like the kind of less is more restraint of horror is more popular now.
Yeah, I mean, like violence we've become very desensitized to an extent with violence, like you're saying, because look at the original Godfather movie is rated R18. It's like two people get shot in that or something. Like there's like almost no violence whatsoever.
Right. Yeah. Boardwalk Empire on HBO is exceptionally more violent than The Godfather.
Yeah. Or look at Game of Thrones or something like that. Like that's one of the most popular series of all time. It's like mainstream appeal, and there's full-on rape scenes and beheadings and people being burned alive and having their dicks chopped off and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I think it's weird because all the stuff we're describing is very metal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody being split in two by a broadsword is very metal, but if we
you're like, all right, where's that arm on? Like, let's go.
The one thing I've never understood is why people can separate art in that sense with movies, but not with music. So, for instance, like people won't think you're a psychopath if you say my favorite movie is Saw, but if you say I listen to Cannibal Corpse, they're like, that's disgusting.
Well, this is because you can close your eyes. You really just can't shut out.
I think it's just a weird misconception that people have that music isn't the same as film in the artistic sense. I think people just view it differently for some reason, because like, why can you have people like directors making disgusting horror movies like that, and yet no one thinks they're like a psychopath, but people say that people in metal bands that sing about those topics have issues type thing. You know what I mean? It's a weird double standard.
There is, yeah, and I think it has to do with heavy metal itself just still being a sort of outsider culture, while horror is still like a crowd pleaser. You could go to a horror movie at 9 p.m. and there's like, all sorts. Like there might be some metalheads in there. There's a bunch of people who want to like scare their significant other. There's just all sorts of people that will go watch horror. And the outsider culture of metal, I think, is still something that is like, it's like almost like not taboo, but it's like kind of misunderstood for sure.
Yeah, I mean, did you watch that documentary on Netflix, Hotel Cecil? Disappearance of Hotel Cecil. It's a true.
No,
definitely
watch
it. We actually drove to Skid Row and took a picture of it the week after watching it because we were going through that area. But the point is, there's in that film, which is a true story, there was a metal musician who stayed in that hotel who played in like a black and death metal band, and his music was about killing people and stuff. And all these people, like online detectives, they called themselves type thing, literally ruined the guy's life because they said that he killed her because he's singing about murder. And hundreds of these people harassed him, and he got all his social media accounts taken down. He got taken off YouTube. All his music got taken down. Police in Mexico came and investigated the dude and stuff for murder.
Wow!
Like literally just because of his lyrical content. I mean, it's crazy.
Well, didn't that just something like that is happening to?
Oh, you mean Nurgle? That's a Polish blasphemy law thing. That's a whole different.
Yeah. He's going through some like real shit right now because
it's like his fifth time being prosecuted by the Polish government over that stuff as well.
Oh yeah, and knowing him, I did a cover story with him a couple of years ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he definitely relishes being like, the sort of antagonist.
Yeah, I got that vibe actually.
Yeah, so like,
Yeah.
in some ways that I think are really useful. Especially for that country.
Yes. He's not like an evil edgelord where you're like, hey man, like how come they took all the friggin', like I don't know, the racism out of black metal.
Yeah.
Like, you fucking pussies, you're just like, no, dude, like edge yourself off a cliff, bud. Like we're not like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I know what you mean. He's getting a conversation going, which is good.
Yeah, and challenging a country that's way behind.
And a lot of it's,
way
free
behind.
speech.
So
it kind of blows my mind that it's like a member of the European Union, but you can still go to jail for criticizing the Bible.
yeah. Where like homosexuality is like outlawed and all this stuff.
And abortion as well. Recently, I think they changed the laws on that, didn't they?
Oh, I didn't know about that.
They did.
Yeah, it was a big thing last year, I think.
Yeah.
They revoked abortion rights that they passed a while back type thing.
Wow. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm glad, that he, despite, his kind of like, sometimes he likes, stirring the pot unnecessarily, but I'm glad he's at least starting some of the conversations there. That cover story was like, I just got out of, I think it was like an 8-year relationship. And I was in like Budapest. I hadn't slept in like 5 days. And Albert was like, hey, do you want to do this Behemoth cover story? And I was like, well, yes, I desperately need a project. so that I don't go insane here while I'm like, taking trains through Europe with my friend. So that was like definitely like a paradigm shift cover story for me. So I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm going to talk to this guy who's like extremely famous in this country too.
Yeah.
He's like a real rock star there. So.
He's one of those dudes who was like a bit ahead of the game with extreme metal and branding with other companies and stuff. He's been doing that for a while now.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, just turning Behemoth itself into a brand,
Yeah, it is. It is. And
really
I really hate how many people online say he's sold out for doing that. Like, dude, why are you criticizing someone for being successful as a businessman? You know what I mean? Like, you don't do that in other genres. Like, no one criticizes Dre for making beats. Like,
yeah,
right. Like he saw an opportunity within his genre and field and expertise. And
there's a weird culture within metal that I've never liked, that people sometimes say people who are successful are sellouts, which I think is really stupid.
There is a resentment of success, that like it's no longer like if you sort of step out from the shadows of obscurity that you like sold out. And and I do think that when it comes to the phrase like being like metal, like a metal elitist is just so oxymoronic to me. You know what I mean? Like this is already outsider stuff. Like how obscure does it need to be? Like there were only 3 copies made. It's just one of those things that like I try to combat stuff like that. Obviously, Wise Blood's whole motto is like our riffs are mean, but we're not, because we just want to kind of get all of the gatekeeping, all of the elitism out of this music and be welcoming. Keep more, get more fans coming in, kind of like make it not accessible musically, just make it accessible where you're not turning people away for not knowing, like what was Pungent Stench's first album? If you don't know, you can't come to the show. You know what I mean?
You know what? I don't know, but I know it's got that fucking weird ass and that weird artist. And then I'm like, it's like, you know what?
I love fucking Stench. I couldn't even name their first one, but I do like
The first,
Ah, yeah.
I actually can't.
I just
think,
know
off the top
it's
of my head. I
fucking-
think I remember it. I think it's for me your body. Oh no, for God your soul, for me your flesh, or something like that.
Yeah.
For God your soul, for me your body, something like that.
Yeah, for God, your soul, for me, your flesh is definitely. It's one of those. Now, is it their first demo? Can I get in if I just say a title? I don't know. I don't know if they'll let me in. But you know, I want to get rid of all that. All of, like the rules of like, you know, which bands can you like? I have no such thing as guilty pleasures anymore. You know, the dudes at Decibel like rip on me for liking Cradle of Filth. So that's like a running gag. Is like a couple times a year, you know, Albert will send me a picture of Danny Filth just like for no reason. He'll just send it. You know, but I love that we have these bands that are gateway bands, you know, that get us into, you know, without Cradle of Filth, I wouldn't have gotten into, you know, Dimmu Borgir and Emperor and, you know, and just like black metal in general. They were a gateway band for me, and they'll always have a place for me. So
yeah, man.
Yeah, me too. Actually, them and Dimmu Borgir are actually the gateway into black metal for me.
Yeah,
which I think is a lot of people.
There's no shame, you know, in that. And so whenever people scoff at something I like, it tells me something about them right away. You know, that sort of like judgmental approach is just so eye rolling to me. Like,
I mean, there are some bands that just genuinely are terrible that are popular. They're not popular. They're not terrible because they're popular. They just are both terrible and popular. Like for me, I absolutely hate Five Finger Death Punch, and it's not because they're popular. I just genuinely can't stand their music or their fan base.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so terrible. I remember I worked with this dude, and I was just like, he goes, "Oh yeah, I love that band," and I was like, "Oh, cool." So then I started playing all the, like, you know how they fucking do all the crazy covers, right? So I started playing all the originals, and he goes like, "No, but that's."
I never understood
it would get so mad because I played the original
personally.
and
It's
not
just
the
something that's
fucking
never
cover,
appealed
like,
to me, like the lyrics about being a tough guy and stuff.
That was a good time.
You know,
something about
all that stuff. And like,
yeah,
that for me has always kind of kept me from really loving Pantera, that and the other stuff. But like, Pantera is one of those bands that has some really good songs, but the lyrical content gets really old really quickly, in my opinion, personally.
Sure.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. To be honest, I'm
not a guy who's really drawn to machismo and music. Like, I like westerns and shit. Like, you know, the sort of I guess that is like the pinnacle of masculinity or whatever in terms of film.
Like cowboy western
type,
like,
cowboy western stuff. Like, I like that.
That's great.
But like, when it comes to music, you know, the stuff that's like all about like machismo, like meathead stuff is just not really for me. But I always see an opportunity if somebody's into like Five Finger Death Punch or like, you know, just like kind of into the surface level, you know, Pantera, Lamb of God type stuff, to be like, oh, okay, well, you know what? You might dig this other band. Like, they got, you know, from there you can go to Power Trip. From Power Trip you could go you know, to Skinless or something. Like, they had like really good breakdowns, you know, in death metal. So I always see an opportunity to get somebody like deeper into underground metal, a little bit, and corrupt them. Yeah. You know, until they're like, one day they're telling me what the Punch and Stench demo was, you know, and then the circle will be complete.
No, I understand. Yeah. I've definitely, for me personally, I've always been one of those guys in my friend group that's sort of showing my friends other stuff, because a lot of my friends are into that type of stuff. And I've always used it, like you said, as an opportunity to be like, well, check this song out, check this song out, check this song out. And eventually they get more, like you said, more and more into the more obscure stuff. Yeah. And I love that. I love the approach of encouragement, you know, encouraging people to dig deeper. And to not like make them feel unwelcome. That's our whole. That was actually why Cave Dweller started. It actually started as a closed friend group for me and people that my friend Matt and I knew, and we just invited them and for us to share music with our friends, and then it kind of just grew from there accidentally. But we originally started just as that, for that purpose only. Yeah, and that's pure right there. You know, that's basically modern tape trading.
you know, is people sending each other Bandcamp links and you know, there's that metal Bandcamp thing where people like give away, you know, some of the like the download codes and stuff.
I love that.
Yeah, it's fantastic, you know, and so, you know, I think the community building aspect, you know, I slip some extra tapes into my orders. You know, sometimes if somebody, you know, spends over $50, like I'll actually buy them a download code for something that's not on our label, you know, just something that I like, because that's really what it's about. It's just about like making connections and, you know, if somebody sees Wise Blood as someone who encourages that sort of stuff, you know, they're going to stick around. They're going to see what we have to offer.
Right.
So.
Yeah. You know, someone, the band Colosso, I think they're out of Portugal. I got an email. I was like on their Bandcamp Friday, and they were like, "Hey, man, like these are 5 bands that I think you guys should check out." And I checked them out, and like, holy shit, they're all fucking bangers. I was like, dude, like, wow, I haven't heard these bands yet, and like, I wouldn't have heard of them. I probably would have eventually found a few of them, but like, dude, thank you. Like, that was awesome. Like, he just like, hey, like, he wasn't like, hey, man, buy my shit. He was like, check out my friends. Like, these guys fucking got some badass shit.
Yeah, yeah. One thing I will say about, you know, obviously you guys are in a bunch of groups on Facebook, you know, like all the metal groups. And, you know, and I put up questions. I think like today I put one up, like, what does heavy mean to you and all that.
I'm sure I was going to ask you about that. I was like, I responded to you on one of them. I can't remember where it was, but I was like, I really want to talk more in depth with you in person. Say that like, on Facebook or whatever. But I was like, I was just like, all right, I'm gonna save this because I had a lot. I was like, oh, dude, that's a really good question.
You know, I always know this is going to happen, but one of the bands, you know, it was like the third comment was just a link to that guy's band, you know, and I never judge somebody for trying to like hustle and get ears on their own music, but that to me is just the total wrong way to do it. And, you know, when I talk to my bands, you know, a lot of them kind of look for pointers for social media. Like if you just start a conversation and engage with somebody on a human level, eventually they're going to find more out about you, you know, or you could say, you know, some of my favorites were this, and this, and this. And, you know, if you like those, you might like my band too. Yeah. I always have like the 1-for-1 rule where I tell my bands, for every one time you post about your band, post about another band too. Like, give people insight into what you like. You know, post like the favorites, what you're listening to this week, other local bands you like, because nobody does this alone. And you know, the more people you can bring with you, the more community you build, people will pay attention. And I just see people just spamming their links over and over and over, and nobody gets engagement because you know, and it's just one of those things where I just see this done to me in the wrong way, and I hurt for them. But I also, you know, I can't save the whole, you know, the whole metal world here. But that's kind of some advice I would give bands is like the 1-for-1 rule. Like just, you know, build up your contemporaries. You know, talk about the music that you love, and people will learn about your music.
I think the absolute worst way to go about it, which I've seen a lot more of lately, is someone adds you on Facebook and then within a minute sends you an invite link to their band. I'm like,
oh yeah,
I don't even know you, man.
Happens on Instagram all the time to me.
It's so rude. Like I would never do that to a person. You know what I mean? I would never just add around a person and be like, check out Curveball. Like it's very rude to do that, in my opinion. It's kind of like harassment to some extent.
Yeah, you know, it's one of those things because it's also an instant message that there's like kind of an entitlement to your time that I really hate. But I try to. I'm always polite when I reply. If it's sometimes I just ignore it. But yeah, it's one of those things where I'm like, man, I guess I got to be prepared for this sort of thing when I make myself a public facing label rep. You know, I'm not hiding. So So it's going to be one of those things where, I understand a desperation for attention, and coverage, but yeah, I also find it kind of rude. I agree.
The worst one I had was one guy added me, and within 60 seconds had invited me to like 6 pages and join a group, and he didn't even message me. And I was like, yeah, no.
Yeah.
I deleted him.
Yeah, and what a difference it would make, if somebody said, hey, I read Cave Dweller, like, I think it's awesome. Like, these are some of my favorite reviews recently that I checked out because of what you wrote. That all of a sudden changes the entire thing. You'll remember this person's name.
Exactly.
Exactly.
If someone I would never be upset if someone messages me and introduces themselves and then says that. I don't care. Like, that's fine. I run a music website. I want to be contacted by people. It's the people who add me as a friend, never talk to me, and then invite me to like their stuff.
Yeah.
That's what I find rude. It's not the conversation. I'm happy to have a conversation with anyone. I'll talk to anyone. That's not the problem.
Yeah. It's, and I don't think those people will make it very far if that's their approach, And I don't say that to be cruel. Maybe they'll learn. Maybe they'll listen to this interview and realize, that they could change their approach, because it's really about being memorable. And there's nothing memorable, about just spamming links. And what does it matter? Like, what does that? That gives no insight.
Exactly.
So, I still personalize every single email. I do all of our PR. So every single email, you guys have seen it. You guys, you get my request. Please listen, please. Like, please. But every one of those is personalized. Because I value your time and skill, and I do not feel entitled to coverage. I'm just hoping to persuade you to press play, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's the right way to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah. Thank you guys for all you've done for underground music, because dudes like you putting in the work have really it makes a difference. It makes a huge difference to give people and bands a platform that they wouldn't have.
Same to you, of course. You've done even more than we have. I mean, you got the label going. That's amazing. And you're writing for Decibel is great, which is a lot of people. So, yeah, send back at you.
Well, while we were talking, a guy actually asked me if Decibel would hire them. He just added me today as a friend.
Oh, really?
That is wild. That's wild.
Hey, man, what's going on?
So I will politely respond to him in a week that Decibel is not hiring, unfortunately, but and I will point him to listen to this interview.
Yeah.
You can we can just snip this part out of the interview as a soundbite and save it on our computers and send it to people.
Yeah. Oh my God, that would be so good. Yeah, a little PSA for etiquette, promotional etiquette. Yep.
I'll drop it on SoundCloud as an individual track, and then you can just link that to people.
Oh, yeah, this is perfect.
Yeah.
Please do. I'd be honored.
Yeah, twat.
Anyway, our recording is coming to. We kind of have a time limit on these things, that it kind of cuts off recording. So we've got about 10 minutes left, or so, I believe. Just for you to wrap up, anything that you want to kind of get out there about upcoming releases or projects that you've got coming for the label, now would be the time to sort of mention.
Yeah. So, in January, we released Mother of Graves. We've talked about that one. Really proud. That was our first release. So if you like early Catatonia, Paradise Lost, My Dying Bride is, I think, how this whole sort of Odyssean conversation started. We were talking about My Dying Bride. Their Mother of Graves is just a phenomenal band. We mentioned Vexing Hex, for people who kind of like the more prog-oriented occult rock, for like Ghost and Blue Oyster Cult. We just released Caskets Open, for fans of Typo Negative and Danzig, but they have that like really cool, crunchy carnivore, like hardcore punk sort of thing that kind of surfaces in these little bursts. That was our first international album. They're from Finland, so that was like a big thrill for me because seeing Red Records worked with me, and they did the vinyl, and I did the cassette, which is a fraction of the price of the vinyl. But it was really nice to kind of collaborate with them.
Yeah, man.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, the Caskets Open thing was big because that's going to start up a kind of a series of collaborations I'm doing with other labels. So I can't say the band yet, but in May I'm reissuing a band from Indianapolis, a Death Doom band, and Transylvanian recordings, Transylvanian tapes. They're doing the cassette release, and I'm doing CD. A Transylvanian, like James over there.
Nice.
My God, he is so awesome. Like,
I love a lot.
He was a huge inspiration, and when I started Wise Blood, I reached out to all these label reps. Some of them did labels that like burned out after a year. Some of them are still going strong. And they took their time, to really kind of walk me through what to expect when I start. So I really just want to like give out so much love to James from Transylvanian, Thomas Haywood at Seeing Red Records, was huge. Scotty Heath at, Tank Crimes, who did Necrot. Those guys. Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, Tank Crimes is like true DIY, and like, there's so many great labels like, Dark Descent, $20 Spin. I'm naming just American ones, but those Shadow Kingdom, these are all run by one dude, one person, are basically doing these things. And sometimes they grow to have a little help, but for years, it's just one guy in like a weird dim office, getting fucking paper cuts, cause he's packaging his own stuff. So, those guys really, inspired me to do this. And, that's kind of like what I wanted to, kind of share is that, there's been a lot of people that made it seem possible to do this. So I'm looking forward to, the next person who hopefully does it younger than me, because I would have loved to have started this when I was like 26 instead of 36. But, I'm looking forward to the other people that feel compelled to put out their own music, or music by their friends and stuff. So it's kind of how heavy music continues, I guess.
Definitely. We've got some really good relationships with some labels we worked with right from the start, and it's really great getting to know the guys who run those. And obviously we really appreciate everything that they do as well. So yeah, anyone like you who's putting in the effort to try and get underground music out there, we appreciate you guys. We wouldn't be here without you guys. It'd be no need for us.
Yeah, I mean, it's all kind of eating at the same dinner table, and the same like Viking table. I just picture it's like filled with like steaming meats and mead and shit. And we're all just, you've got a big boombox in the middle and the centerpiece. So, I love the sense of community, and you guys are contributing to that in a major way.
Thank you. Yeah, we appreciate that.
Yeah, and I mean, it's feels good to do it. We're not getting paid to do it. We're doing it because we love it, and we, just generally really do care and love the music. We, helped us through some dark times, helped us through awesome times. Like music's always there. And,
oh man,
without it, it'd be pretty fucking boring.
At the moment, we're just doing it out of the love of music. We're not getting any monetary value out of it, but we do have some stuff down the line we're looking at developing that I'm not going to say on this podcast because it's still in the works, but there should be some stuff hopefully within the next year that might spring out of this. When it happens, I'll tell you, but, this is some stuff in the works.
Hell yeah. I'm excited to see Cave Dwellers ascent for sure.
The same too.
Yeah. We'll peek our heads out of the cave. Or maybe we,
out of the cave into the swampland.
I don't know.
It'll be good.
Yeah, same with Wise Blood. We're excited to see where you guys go. I'm sure you guys have a really bright future ahead of you the way things are tracking.
Yeah, man. I mean, you got some good stuff on there, you know. Like, dude, I like it. We mentioned before, like Vexing Hex. Like that's, you know, bands like that. It's like so much fun to hear and like think about. You're like, wow, man. Like, I honestly wouldn't have found that band, I don't think, unless I was like searching around, like looking like through your categories, you know, all your stuff.
Yeah, if you ever want to interview those guys, they're extremely interesting and smart and funny, and would be down for sure.
Okay, yeah, that actually might be something we should look at.
But and they're also, you know, they're possessed by like the spirit of like heavy metal or something. Is their whole thing? They're like the mortal pest. So I don't really know what's going to happen on the show. That would be a lot of fun to hear.
Yeah, I'll reach out to you about that. Actually, that's a good thing. So, anything else that you want to put out there before we wrap up? Any announcements or anything that people should be looking for in the future?
The only other ones that Empty Throne is a big one. Empty Throne has current and ex members of Possessed, Abyss, and Angerot. They're a new project and they are fucking brutal. Like, they are so good. Like, these songs are like 7-minute epics of just like blackened death thrash that are really ornate. One of them sounds like an old Cradle of Filth song, and it's actually about a succubus. So I'm into that shit. So I can't wait. I might have sent you a promo. If not, I'll send you. I'll send you another one because you can share it with whatever loved one would appreciate it. Probably not your wife.
Thank you. Yeah, you sent me 2 codes, and I gave one to Brian here, so both of us have the promo.
Yeah, nah, dude, it was great. I listened to it. Like I said, I was listening to that, and I can't remember any of the other bands, but I was listening to them today during dinner, and my wife is just like, come on.
It is not gateway metal, that's for sure. It is really sad.
This is awesome.
I'm excited. They're gonna outgrow my little label pretty quickly.
It's so good.
But I'll embrace this opportunity to kind of show their EP.
Yeah. Oh man, they're great.
Well, thank you guys. Thank you for having me on and taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. We appreciate you taking some time out of your day to chat to us, and it's always good to have someone on the show who has an interview background themselves. It makes it sort of a two-way street, which we're not really used to. We're not so used to. So if we talk too much,
I had a great time. I'm pretty socially starved because of the pandemic and stuff. So this was a lot of fun for me.
Us too. All right. So for anyone who was listening, that was Sean Frasier from Wise Blood Records. Go check him out. He's on Bandcamp. He's on all the big social media platforms. You can follow them. I believe that most of his artists are on Spotify, if not all of them. YouTube, everywhere that you can listen to music, you can find his music. So make sure to give them a follow after this. And thanks again for coming on the show. We really appreciate it.
You guys got it. You guys rule.